I hope you all fasten your seatbelts, because those who know me know that I use a lot of images very quickly. I'll say a few words about the world we live in as I see it and some of the challenges, and then three basic themes: medicine, health, and education, food, agriculture, and natural resources, and technology, industry, and the environment. So, my friends, let's start with this little prologue. We are living the third global revolution. The first revolution was agriculture. It allowed societies to become sedentarized and civilizations to rise. The second global revolution was the industrial revolution, which transformed not only the means of production, but the relationship between humans and the product that they work on. The third global revolution is the knowledge revolution. We are witnessing an amazing transformation right now, where the emphasis is no longer brawn, as we would say, or muscle, but brain. This is where it's coming from. And it's having a major impact in transforming industries, in creating new sectors in areas which didn't exist before. The revolution that we are living is just beginning. We are only beginning right now. The speed of change is phenomenal. The interaction between science, technology, and innovation is great. Sometimes it raises fears in society about the ability to cope with that speed, as practically everything we know gets transformed within a few short years. We talk about the information society or the knowledge society. And data, when it gets organized, becomes information. When it's explained, it becomes knowledge. But is that enough? What we really need to cope with our challenges is wisdom. Wisdom is beyond knowledge. It's in addition to knowledge. The world we live in, however, is one where there is a lot of knowledge, but perhaps not enough wisdom. And that's perhaps something which we shall seek from our distinguished visitors. It is a globalized world where boundaries have been transgressed in many ways. We know the problems: financial markets that have gone out of control, the feeling among many in the developing world and even in the industrial world that the poor are left behind and unable to cope, whether they are in the rich countries or in the poor. In the meantime, lifestyles continue unabated, both in energy consumption, in means of transportation, in destruction of our patrimony of natural resources, and in our continuing pollution and its impact on climate change and the greenhouse gases, but also pollution of that most vital of things for life, which is water. Sadly, we are still spending enormously on the military. 16 times more on military spending than on development assistance around the world today, with horrible impacts. And yet, despite what we know about the cost of war, it continues. People can always find money for it. This, to me, is one of the most moving pictures I have seen. But then, of course, I am a librarian, so I am deeply moved by the child holding the books. I think that it is depriving also human rights. It's not just political and civil rights, but access to knowledge, ability to learn, to flourish is part of human rights. And I would say that it is not enough to celebrate the earth and its inhabitants, that we must restore what we have destroyed. We can see the possibilities. We have an unlimited transformation in our ability to communicate around the world. There is a gaining ground for the notion that we have a common humanity and all should share in human rights. A global consensus was formed, not just about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 and subsequent instruments, but even about the Millennium Development Goals. And yet, my friends, the first and most essential of the Millennium Development Goals, the one that would try to fight poverty and hunger, is going the wrong way. Now, why is this all wrong? Because, in fact, what we need above all to implement these images, these goals, is peace. I call a witness that you will all recognize, and not just because it's the year of France and Egypt. Napoleon Bonaparte is probably one of the best-known figures in history, and the person who actually used the sword somewhat. What you may not know is what he said, reflecting on his life. He said, "Do you know what astonished me most in the world? The inability of force to create anything. In the long run, the sword is always beaten by the esprit," which would be mind or spirit, depending on how you translate it. So, on reflecting on his life, Napoleon found, in fact, that the lasting contributions he made were those of the foundation of academies of science, foundation of the National Theatre, the central bank, the système des lycées français around the world, and the Code Civil. His military victories and defeats were extremely ephemeral and left no mark on society. So the essential goals, if we're going to go to peace, it is peace and justice, for there is no security without peace, there is no peace without justice, there is no justice without equity, and there is no equity without inclusion. People must be included in the processes that affect them, or else there will be no lasting peace. With that, the future really can be great. Technology is very promising. We already connect young people everywhere in tools that nobody could imagine would exist. We've expanded our brain's reach in avenues and means that are beyond belief, and a whole lot more. And the current moment, I know people will say, we've had these terrible, terrible impacts of the financial crisis, but I see a silver lining in it. Global markets and the knowledge-based economy that got people to see the trillion-dollar markets, and maybe, yes, they did go overboard in unchecked fashions, and they did blow a fuse in the financial markets of the world, and at huge cost to people, in real cost in terms of unemployment and other problems. But there's a silver lining. First, for the first time, we are able to really have a proper debate on the role of government regulation and the private sector, and not just a knee-jerk reaction that governs best, that governs least, private sector will do it all. Secondly, we have a new administration in the United States which is willing to look for multilateral solutions, recognizing that many of our problems cannot be resolved by a single country, no matter how big or how powerful. And thirdly, there's a greater awareness that global environmental problems will require collaboration across boundaries, and that in fact we must all get together, even if that has escaped us in Copenhagen. So the best outcome would be new opportunities for the South, for the developing world, but only if the South can master science, education, and develop its own scientists. And here we are facing inequality of access to resources. If rich countries in per capita income have 40 times the income of the poorer countries, they are actually spending on per capita terms 220 times more on research every year. It's an amazing figure. And yes, therefore, there are some of the poorest people in the world. That lowest billion that is still hungry today is being left behind. And the mystery of economic growth is that it is lifting up many parts of the world, including huge swaths of humanity like in China and parts of India, but it is leaving behind others. Inequality of access to equipment. Here is a preschool in Germany, and here is a school in sub-Saharan Africa without even a blackboard, without places to sit on, no chairs for the children. And vast numbers of young children who are, in fact, competing to find their place in the sun and to learn. And maybe technology will provide them with answers. Our good friend Nicholas Negroponte and Alan Kay were here and presenting the ideas of a $100 computer or less, who knows. There is inequality in access to knowledge. Teachers in many parts of the world need recent, correct, and easily available material. And we're doing our part, and there will be a discussion of the super course later on. So the future is there, the challenges are here. What do we do? Well, for one thing, we are having this meeting and getting together to share ideas about how we can actually make this happen. This is the 5th BioVision we organized in Alexandria. They've all been well attended, I'm happy to say. We also have our biofair and poster sessions for younger scientists. The publications from the previous events show the quality of the work that has been done in these previous conferences, and I have every reason to hope that this one will join the rest. But fundamentally, what we want to do is to address the new knowledge revolution. For the biological sciences are poised for a transformation that has no parallel in history. And there, whether it's the knowledge or the method or the technology, they are intertwined. It is very difficult to take them apart. And here in this conference, we will have themes that will come back and forth and are woven together. Themes of medicine, health and education, of agriculture, food and natural resources, of technology, industry and environment, and where, as in BioVision Lyon, we try to have practicing scientists, researchers, as well as people, CEOs of industry being present, as well as members of society at large, like myself. Well, I cannot cover several of these, but nevertheless, the themes are intertwined, and you will find, therefore, reflections. It's not just sort of completely cut out. You'll find reflections of these issues coming back and forth in the various sessions. Key questions: how does new knowledge generate new technology? And how do new technologies impact on the themes? And how do these groups of actors relate to each of these themes? And if we can immediately see tomorrow, can we dream of beyond tomorrow? Well, I think we can, and I'm very happy to welcome in our midst a lot of very distinguished people who are working on biorobotics, who will show you a glimpse of something that we thought was in tomorrow, but it's beginning to happen today. So let me start with medicine, the theme, medicine, health and education, and I would ask for those who address it to keep in mind the following questions. The first is the global challenges and the priorities in research. Well, we all know that medicine is advancing, that it has life-saving potential. We all know that we benefited from various kinds of medicines. Perhaps that's the most widely used medicine in the world, aspirin, right? That's the, it is important to understand the cost, the obstacles of getting new medicines developed, but will they be within reach of billions of human beings who need them? Second, as was just mentioned by our minister, the brain drain. We want to turn the brain drain into brain gain, whether by circulation or by collaboration. It's an interesting graph that shows co-authored paper with the US and the percentage of foreign-born PhDs in the US from that country. And you may think it has a direct relationship, but actually what interests me more is looking at that. Why, for the same percentage, one group of countries is getting like 4 or 5 times more collaboration than another? What can we do to ensure that this collaboration actually takes place and that therefore brain drain is transformed into brain gain and then hopefully later on into brain circulation? New knowledge, new technologies. It opens amazing new possibilities, but is it affordable? Because that brings us to the access to medicines question, which is an important issue. It was mentioned by Christian Grenier, at any price, what does it cost? And there are ethical questions about clinical trials being done in developing countries by rich countries. We need to think about that, and we think about priorities. I'm very happy, I sort of dug up that picture yesterday. Elias Zerhouni and myself had the privilege of being with Bill Gates in Davos in 2003 in the launch of the Gates Foundation Global Health Challenges, which resulted in setting priorities, and now really the Gates Foundation has become the biggest donor for assisting health in developing countries. Mobilizing the genetic revolution is the challenge that we have to think of, not just the conventional chemical remedies of the past, but can we in fact find ways of dealing with that?